Hello, my name is Christine DiCarlo, and I'm the Media and Public Affairs Manager with the American Association of Colleges of Osteopathic Medicine, or AACOM. This Pride Month, AACOM is interviewing Dr. Nicole Wadsworth, Dean of the New York Institute of Technology College of Osteopathic Medicine, NYATCOM, about her efforts to address bias and health inequities among the LGBTQIA+ community, and how colleges of osteopathic medicine can contribute to a more equitable healthcare landscape for LGBTQIA+ patients. Dr. Wadsworth, thank you so much for speaking with us about this important topic.
You're so welcome. I'm very happy to be here.
Great. So our first question for you is, in a recent op-ed, you wrote that COVID-19's disproportionate impact on the LGBTQIA+ community is the result of longstanding health inequities. What role can osteopathic medical education play in addressing these inequities to advance LGBTQIA+ health?
Well, thank you for that. So I think osteopathic medical education can address these issues in three distinct ways, if you will, and I'll talk about each one. So the first, and I'll say I'm a little biased, if you will. This was the approach that we took at our institution. But first, taking sort of some internal look at ourselves and working on both identifying our internal bias as well as some structural bias that exists within the institution, and then working on faculty development around those issues, as well as staff development. And as you have that sort of internal look, if you will, and to understand exactly what's happening, both personally as well as institutionally, I think that starts to set the stage on how you can address this in a meaningful way. Another approach is through curricular change. And as I started to look at this personally, as well as listening to the environment around us, it became really evident how steeped in a white tradition, if you will, medical education is. And particularly if you really take a deep dive and look at textbooks and the like, there's a very unidimensional look at some illnesses and descriptions of issues. And so I think starting to really address these, there's new textbooks and other things in the environment that have started to cover topics in a broader sort of way, particularly around LGBTQIA+ issues. So those are another area. And then the last is many osteopathic medical schools are partners with community-based hospitals. And because this is a particular interest for us, partnering with those hospitals to expand and support programming through resident education, research support, and faculty development, again, back to that issue. So I think those are some ways that we can start to address these issues.
Studies have shown most U.S. medical students are undereducated when it comes to LGBTQIA+ healthcare. To help address this, AACOM is launching a new academic recognition program this summer for third-year students that will feature a module focused on LGBTQIA+ healthcare. Has NYATCOM adopted any new curricula to help future DOs better meet the needs of patients from sexual and gender minority groups?
So as I already mentioned, curriculum is certainly a way to do this, and I'll sort of articulate some of the places that we've included in our curriculum to date, and some areas where we're thinking about we'd like to expand. In our preclinical, so the students in the first 2 years, we talk about assessment of patients, and so asking questions around gender identity, sexual orientation. We also talk about terminology so the students can start to use language in a meaningful and productive way. We have cases where students will interview standardized patients, again, practicing these skills, using the language that creates that more inclusive environment for the LGBTQ population. In addition, we have lectures, so sort of formal didactic learning that cover endocrinology issues, clinical disorders around the adrenal gland, as well as care for transgendered patients. We have a Center for Global Health, which offers a certificate. Now, this is an elective proceeding, but we do talk about some of the international issues around care for transgendered patients, non-binary, gender diverse individuals. In addition, we have clinical experiences where students interact with the LGBTQIA community, as well as some opportunities to participate in voluntary activities within the LGBT community, both locally on our campus, as well as in the Long Island region. So those are some of the things that we're doing currently. Additionally, we're looking to add some modules around surgical treatments as related to transgendered patients, as well as we'd like to incorporate more standardized patients that identify as LGBTQI+, so that there's a genuineness as students interact with individuals from this community in day-to-day illness, because certainly we all suffer from similar illness, and I think that will help enrich the student experience.
So representation is important both for fostering a diverse culture and for decreasing bias. How can colleges of osteopathic medicine attract more LGBTQIA+ students, faculty members, administrators, and leaders?
So I certainly agree, representation is important, and attracting a diverse group of students, faculty, administrators, leaders is really an important piece of this. So as we recruit individuals, I think that alone will help. So some of it is the how, and I think part of it goes back to one of the initial things I shared, is to first take a deep look into yourself and understanding your own personal bias, and then what are the structural issues within your institution that may be getting in the way of recruiting a more diverse group of students, faculty, staff. And so once you identify that, sort of identifying the problem, then you can shift and start to create the culture that you want. And I think that's really important, because if you as an institution aren't committed to this in a meaningful way, so and not to be dismissive when there's a sign or transgendered bathrooms, but really be committed to it. I think particularly people who visit your campus and aren't necessarily a part of your culture can distinguish those places where perhaps it's window dressing and those places where we've really embraced this as part of who we are, who we want to be. So I think that's a really important piece, to commit to the diversity in the institution. Taking these steps to then consciously recruit students who are widely representative. And that may require a really deep look at how do you recruit students? Where do you recruit students? What does your advertising material look like? Is it inclusive or not? And do you use the right language? Because I think if we don't do those things, then students may be less attracted to us. As far as attracting faculty, leaders, administrators, some infrastructure pieces need to be in place. Are there partner benefits? Are there other supports within the institution that would make somebody that came, with a different perspective from the community would feel comfortable? And I think those things, having your house in order, like I said, and being truly committed to it, is a way that you can actively and successfully recruit individuals.
So last month was Mental Health Awareness Month, and while mental health struggles disproportionately affect those in the medical profession, they also disproportionately affect LGBTQIA+ individuals. On top of this, COVID-19 is causing broad and far-reaching mental health concerns across the population at large. What advice do you have for advancing LGBTQIA+ mental health amid such a stressful landscape?
I agree. Certainly incredibly stressful, incredibly important topic for mental health. And for the LGBTQIA plus population and everyone. So I think it's a really, really critical topic. And I think one of the ways, and I'm very proud of our Center for Behavioral Health on the AACOM campus, has been to approach this as we really want to diminish the stigmatization that seems to accompany mental health. And how we've done that is made it really just part and parcel of everyday life. Part of taking care of yourself is your mental health, not your physical health, eating well, all of those things, but mental health is as important if anything else. And so we're very intentional about how we talk about it. And I think this has allowed students, LGBTQIA plus students, as well as the remainder of the students, to feel more comfortable and recognize, okay, it's okay. I have anxiety, I have depression, I have needs, and we want to help you with that. And so destigmatization is a huge part of how we've approached it to help students. In addition, we talk about it at times that outside of the curriculum. So be it an informal opportunity to engage with each other, with faculty, with administrators, and we talk about mental health and how we've all approached that particular area of our lives and what we can do to make it better. The other approach, I think, and specifically about the community, is how do we outwardly display that we've taken some additional training or we have some additional expertise as it relates to the LGBTQIA plus population. And I think that outward demonstration that communicates that we have providers who understand and want to listen and talk through issues. So as a specific example, there's a safe zone training that we encourage all of our community to participate in. And I think that gives students some comfort that they'll be accepted and can be cared for in a positive way.
So what does the osteopathic approach of whole person care mean to you? And does it play a role in how you teach students about diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I love this question. This is great. So from my standpoint, osteopathic medicine to me is inclusive at its foundation. So it's just really part and parcel to it. Seeing and hearing another person with the desire to understand that other person in their entirety underlies, in my mind, excellent healthcare. And so each person, to really recognize that each person is far more than an illness, and taking into account their multidimensionality allows for really comprehensive care. And I think we as osteopathic medical educators and the physicians that train our students provide that to students. Sometimes even they're not completely aware of it, but where we see it expressed is when they're in the clinical environment. And the students, we hear back from our clinical partners, your students are a little bit different, and they really seem to be able to engage with patients. And I'm convinced that this holistic idea that is continually reinforced is what people are seeing. And as students, so anyways, you get the sense that this is really important in the training. I think it's in some respects sort of baked in because the students are trained by DOs. And it provides our students perhaps a broader perspective than just focusing on a complaint and symptoms. And so how does this play out in the context of who you are, who you live with, where you live, and all of those sort of things. You know, the OME approach allows for that holisticness. Patients feel like they're really cared for.
Yeah, I love that answer too. You know, I think that's one of the most beautiful things about osteopathic medicine is that physicians are trained to look at people in their whole selves holistically. And I know that would have a huge benefit just for health and across the board. So thank you for that. So as we're seeing on the state and national levels, laws and their interpretations can have a huge impact on healthcare, threatening patients who seek it, their families, and the health professionals who provide it. What advice would you give to osteopathic medical students or professionals who are interested in advocating for change?
So advocacy is another part of medicine, and I certainly, there has been more and more effort to introduce advocacy in the curriculum, or at least give students who are interested an opportunity to participate. And so I think as the various legislation impacts the community, I would really encourage students and professionals to inform themselves of the specific issues or the legislation that's out there, and then to reach out to their local as well as their representatives nationally about their concerns. And I think sometimes we as a medical profession, students underestimate the power of our voice. And so reaching out and being very specific, I think that's something that maybe we don't emphasize enough. But if you keep your concerns and even potentially providing solutions in a very focused and concise way, that may be more effective as you're reaching out to your legislators. Another approach would be is to learn and partner with larger groups, such as the AOA, AACOM, state osteopathic chapters, which is a strategy not only to have your voice heard, but you can amplify your voice with others with similar concerns. And so I think really informing yourself, being engaged, and partnering when it's helpful are ways that you can advocate for change.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting. Those are very good practical tips for people who are interested. And I do want to mention for anyone listening who's interested in advocacy, at the end of the month, AACOM is hosting an advocacy day virtually, and you can all register for that for free. So we'll make sure to put a link to that for anyone who wants to get more involved. So my final question for you is, there are certainly a lot of challenges and work to be done, not only to advance, but also to protect the rights of LGBTQIA+ community members. Amid all of this, there is still space for hope and celebration. How are you planning to celebrate Pride Month?
So certainly I'm excited to live in an area where there's not one, but two Pride parades, which is always a good time. And the other opportunity that I have, which I am incredibly grateful, is that I find myself a member of multiple communities. So I have my NYTCOM community, I have the NYIT community, AACOM, AOA, as well as my local community that celebrate and lift up the LGBTQAI community.
Thank you for answering all of our questions. We really appreciate your time, your advocacy, your thoughtful answers. And the osteopathic medical education community really appreciates your insights and recommendations as we're all working together to advance LGBTQIA+ healthcare this Pride Month and beyond. So thank you again for your time and your really thoughtful responses.
You're welcome. Thank you.